Okay, I'm going to demonstrate making pizza dough, just your basic pizza dough, and I'm going to start by measuring out the ingredients. Okay, so the first ingredient is 1 packet or 2 teaspoons of active dry yeast. Okay, so when you go to the store and you buy yeast, you'll probably buy it in a packet like this, but I buy it in bulk. So I have it in a jar, all right, and you can look at that. It looks like sand, and what these are little biological organisms that have been dehydrated, okay? And we are going to rehydrate them in water, and they're going to consume some sugar, and they are going to give off carbon dioxide bubbles as waste. All right, and that is what is going to make our bread rise. Okay, so I need 2 teaspoons of yeast. All right, so 1, 2. Okay. Then, because we're using whole wheat flour in this recipe, I'm going to use 2 tablespoons of sugar. All right, so it's just regular table sugar. So I'm going to measure it out, and I'm going to level it off. So that's 1, 2. All right, so 2 tablespoons of sugar. I have 1 1/4 cup of water here, and it needs to be between 110 and 120 degrees. So you can see right there, it's not quite 120 degrees. Okay, so this is perfect. Put this over here. All right, next I'm going to measure out 3½ cups of flour. So I'm going to divide it between white whole wheat and regular all-purpose flour. All right, so I'm going to start with the all-purpose flour. And you'll see that I'm just going to lightly spoon it into the cup. You don't want to pack it in, all right, and then level it off. So I'm going to use 1 3/4 cup of each. So there's 1 cup and 1/2 cup. And 1/4 cup. Okay, so there's my all-purpose flour. Now I'm going to measure out my white whole wheat flour. Now, white whole wheat has a really mild flavor. It doesn't have a really strong flavor like regular whole wheat does. All right, so I'm mixing it half and half. You probably should start out half and half, and then you can continue to increase the whole wheat flour, because you have to see where it is that you like it. Okay, you might not like it if it was 100% white whole wheat. Okay, so there's 1 cup. Here's 1/2 cup. Okay, and 1/4 cup. Now you're going to have to take a little bit of flour extra in case you need to add flour to make the mixture the right consistency. Okay, now because we're using the whole wheat flour, we need to use wheat gluten. Okay, so this by itself here is just plain old gluten. All right, because the bran in the whole wheat flour cuts up the gluten fibers. Okay, so it doesn't rise as well. So I'm just going to mix that right there. All right, now I'm just going to mix this up a little bit so it's mixed together. So you're adding both at the same time. You know what, you can use a whisk, Okay, this is pre-sifted, so you don't have to sift it. Oh, I put the gluten right in here. I should have put it in here. Okay. Now I'm going to put in 1.5 to 2 teaspoons of salt. Okay. So this is just plain old iodized salt. And here's 1 teaspoon. I'm just going to use about 1.5. 1.5. There you go. Okay, and then we're going to need 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Okay, so 1 and 2. All right, now, now that we have everything measured out, this is our mise en place, and we are going to go ahead and start the directions. All right, so in a liquid measuring cup, you're going to mix together your warm water, your sugar, and don't get it confused with the salt, that's really easy to do, and the yeast. Right, and you need to mix this around so all the yeast comes in contact with some water, because here what you're doing is you're rehydrating it and you gave it a little bit of sugar to consume. So we're just going to set this aside and we're going to wait to see if it foams up on top. So what this is called, what we're doing here is called proofing the yeast. So we want to know that the yeast is active before we go through all the labor-intensive work of mixing everything together and kneading the dough, okay? All right, so we're just gonna set this aside. Okay, and we're back. All right, so we let the yeast mixture sit for a while and you can see all that foam, okay? It looks like root beer foam, all right? So we know that our yeast is active. All right, so now we can begin. Okay, so the next direction is place salt and 1 cup of flour into a large mixing bowl or the bowl of a stand mixer. So here I have a stand mixer, all right? And I'm gonna show you the attachments. This is a paddle attachment, right? And this is your general use attachment. If it doesn't tell you what kind of attachment to use, you always just grab the paddle, all right? Looks like a little paddle. And then next we have the dough hook. Let's see, I'll get it down here for you, all right? This is going to start the kneading process in the dough, okay? So you're only gonna use this pretty much for making bread, yeast bread. All right, so I'm gonna put my paddle on and you can see here that there's a little indent. It's like a lock and a key. You're gonna find the little screw here. You slide it up and turn it and it's locked, okay? So the nice thing about these stand mixers is that your hands are free, okay? You don't have to hold the mixer. All right, so salt and 1 cup of flour. So I'm gonna go ahead and add the flour first. And here you don't have to be really careful, okay? Just grab a cup of flour, put it in there. You're gonna put your salt in. Then you're going to add your yeast mixture. And by the way, the yeast stinks. Just thought you should know that. Some people like it, but most people think it stinks, okay? All right, so now I'm going to mix at the lowest speed with the paddle attachment. And so you want the flour to all incorporate into the water. Now you're gonna wanna have your handy dandy rubber spatula always around whenever you're doing any baking, because you're going to want to scrape down the sides. You just want to make sure that none of the flour stays stuck to the side. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and check and see, and I think that this is all mixed together. Okay, looks good to me. Okay, see, you just scrape it down. All right. Now you're going to add your olive oil, and if you wanted to add any seasonings like garlic or oregano, whatever you wanted, here is where you would add that. All right, so I'm going to mix this together. Okay, you just want to make sure everything's mixed. All right, now I'm going to slowly add the rest of the flour. All right, so be kind of careful here, because you never want to start it at a high speed when you're adding dry ingredients, because the ingredients will fly out. Okay. Can you tell I'm doing this at home? My dog doesn't like the mixer. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and add the rest of it. So I did that in about 2 additions. All right, and I'm just going to mix it up a little bit, and then we're going to switch to the dough hook, and we're going to start the kneading process. Okay, that's enough of that. So I'm going to scrape the dough off of the paddle. Oops. Okay, and now I'm going to put the dough hook on. All right, same thing. Slide it up and give it a twist, and then it's locked in there. All right, so here we go. Actually, I'm not sure if she doesn't like the mixer or she knows there's food in here and she wants some. Okay, so you can see that the dough is slowly coming together. All right, and as soon as this happens, you want to increase the speed. Okay, and here we go. It's forming into a ball. And this is what you want. Okay, so I'm going to stop here, and then I'm going to take it out of the bowl and I'm going to knead it. You could do this for the rest of the time. You could use the dough hook and not knead it, but what's the fun if you're not going to knead it? Okay, so we're back now, and I am going to turn this dough out onto the counter, and it needs to be turned out onto a floured surface. All right, so I have about half a cup of flour here. So I'm just going to put flour on the counter, and it's best if you just knead the dough right on the counter. I know a lot of people like to do it on a cutting board, but it slides around. This is really the best way to do it. Okay, and it doesn't matter which flour you use. I'm just using the regular all-purpose flour, and you can use more as needed. The amount of liquid and the amount of flour that you're going to need in a recipe on a given day is going to change, because it depends on the air pressure, the humidity, the temperature. Sometimes you might need more liquid, sometimes you might need more flour. Okay, so this looks really good. You can see it's kind of stretchy, right? Okay, so it's kind of sticky right now, and that's not what you want. So what you're going to do is knead it until it's smooth and elastic. All right, so I'm kneading it. I'm pushing on it with the heel of my hand here, okay? And you really push on it. So actually, I think bread is a really good thing to make. Dough, any kind of yeast dough that you have to knead, especially during COVID. Because if you're stressed or upset, this can get it all out. Because this is a lot of work. Okay, so you can do it with one hand, you can do it with two hands. So you push on it, you fold it back towards you, you push on it again, you can turn it and fold it. Okay, so what you're doing is you're developing the gluten. This is going to make it kind of a tougher bread than, say, for example, a cupcake. Okay, so actually, this is pretty good. You just don't want it to be sticky. And the more you knead it, the less sticky it will be. Now, when you're done and you clean off your counter, you're going to feel that there's going to be some dough left on the counter. So you can scrape that off with a spatula or the back side of a knife. Okay, so now we're going to have to let this rise. All right, so there's two ways you can do that. If we were in class, you would be putting it into a gallon Ziploc bag, and we would be putting it into the refrigerator for 48 hours until you came back next time, and by then it would be perfect and be ready to go. So you can have it rise slowly in your refrigerator. 24, 48 hours, you can just check on it and you'll see it rise. It's amazing. Or you can put it in a bowl and put it in a warm place for about an hour and a half. And you're going to see it's going to double in size. Okay. So you want to make sure and put a little bit of oil in the bowl. All right, so I'm going to do that right here because otherwise the dough will stick to it. All right, and I'm just going to kind of wipe it around. Oh, I'm wiping it out. Looks like I need some more. Oops, that's a lot. Okay, that's okay. I'll wipe it out. And olive oil is good for us. Okay, so here's my beautiful dough, and I'm just going to put it in here. Now, one thing you can do is microwave a cup of water until it's really hot, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and then leave the cup of water in the back corner of the microwave and put this bowl in there with it. Okay, don't turn the microwave on once you put the bowl in. But what'll happen is the heat from the water will heat up the inside of the microwave and this will rise. Okay. Otherwise, just find a warm place in your kitchen and just put it there. Now, you can cover it with a towel if you want, or some plastic wrap loosely. So I'm going to put this away, and when it's ready, I'm going to show you. Okay, here's our finished product. You can see how much it rose. And you can see bubbles. It's very elastic. Okay, so now you're just going to press it into a pan, or you can toss it, and then you're going to put your toppings on it.